Hello everyone, how are you doing today? I hope you're doing well, I hope you're healthy and happy. So welcome back to another science lesson. And today we're going to continue learning about life cycle of plants. And I want you to go to page 137 of your textbook. And as we always do, write the date. Today's date is March the 2nd, 2020. So today we're going to, as a reminder, last time we learned about the life cycle of a flowering plant. So we've seen all the stages that a flowering plant goes through, like all the 4 stages. And as we've already seen and as we all know, we have different type of plants. So we have the flowering plants and the non-flowering plants. So today we're going to see how one kind of non-flowering plants, which is the conifer plants, what is the cycle of this plant? What are the stages that conifer plants go through in its life cycle? So pine trees are conifers, as we know, okay? They produce cones. That's why we call them conifer plants and not flowering plants, because they do not produce flowers. Conifer plants grow cones instead of flowers to make seeds. So the seeds are inside the cones, not inside the flower. So this is a life cycle of a conifer plant. And here we have an example of a pine tree. Okay? The first stage, so as you can see, we have 4 stages. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and the last one, number 4. So let's read number 1. Germinating seed. The first one is germinating seed. To germinate a pine tree seed, let me just highlight. To germinate, a pine tree seed needs water, oxygen, and warm temperature. Like obviously, as any plant, a pine tree seed here, so it will grow and germinate, it needs water, oxygen, and warm temperature. Not very cold, freezing weather, and not very hot weather. So it needs warm, mild temperature. A seedling grows. A seedling is this small plant, okay? Small or tiny plant grows from the germinated seed. And then we have the next stage, which we don't have a name for, but maybe this is our exercise, so we will write the name of the stage. Over many years, the pine seedling, this one, grows into a tall adult tree. The tree makes small pollen cones, larger seed cones. So it makes small pollen cones and larger seed cone. And as we've seen, we have 2 kinds of cones, the small pollen cones and the larger seed cone, one that has pollen and one that has a seed. So this seedling, this tiny plant, grows into this tall, big, large, huge tree over many years. Okay, it can be 1 year, 2 years, even 10 years and 20 years and over 20 years. Okay, and then we have the third stage, which we have to figure out the name. Small pollen cones make pollen. Wind carries the pollen to a large cones where seeds are made. So the third stage is where the cones exchange pollen. So the small pollen cones sends the pollen to the large seed cone. And when insects, animals carry this pollen to this cone, so the seeds are grown. the last stage, adult plant with seeds. Adult plant with seeds. So this tree here, it has these cones here with the seeds. Seeds develop in the seed cones. So seeds start to grow inside the seed cone. The seeds fall to the ground when the cones open. So when this cone open, the seeds fly or fall with the help of their wings. The seeds can become a new plant, and then the seed, if it's fall on the ground and it has the right conditions like water, oxygen, and room temperature, it's going to grow into a tiny plant, and then a big plant, and then pollinate, and then have a seedling or cones with seeds. So let's go to the question. Number 3, text features. Compare the two life cycles shown on these pages. Then in the blank spaces, which means this one and this one, write the titles for stage 2 and stage 3 in the life cycle of pine tree. So we don't have the names or the titles for second stage and third stage, but we can get help from this life cycle, okay? Because these have a little bit similar life cycles, okay? So number 2 is growth and number 3 is pollination. If we come here and we see, so are they the same? Like, this one, is it a growth of the tree, of the tiny plant into a tree? Yes, okay, so this is the growth or the growth stage, okay? This is the growth stage because the tiny plant is growing into a plant or a tree over the years. And then number 3 is exchange of pollen. So it is very good. It's pollination. Well done. Very good. So now that we have seen the life cycle of flowering plants and the flowering plants, life cycle of flowering plants and the life cycle of conifer plants, let's see some other life cycle of other plants. So here we have other plant life cycle. So let's have a look at the life cycle of some other plants. Some plants have two kinds of life cycles. They make seeds that grow into new plants, but they can also reproduce another way. So some plants have two kinds of life cycle. That's pretty interesting. So they don't have only one way that they can reproduce, but two ways. Let's read about it. The stem, so they can reproduce through seeds, as we all know, but there is another way. What is this way? The stem of a strawberry plant can bend over and touch the soil. Wow. So here, the strawberry plant does not reproduce through the seeds, which it can, but it also reproduces through the stem. Okay. How? New roots form on the stem. New roots form on the stem. They grow into the soil and a new strawberry plant forms. That's pretty interesting. Okay, so here the strawberry plant does not only grow, it can grow through seeds, but it has another way that the stems will bend over, touch the soil, and with the roots, like with some small roots that are on the stem, they can grow a new strawberry plant. For this I have a video that can show you how this happens.
If you've grown strawberries before, you'll have noticed that they send out these rather long, leafless stalks called runners. Well, we can use these to quickly raise new plants, and in this video we'll show you how.
Established strawberry plants will send out multiple runners over the soil surface. Each runner
So these stems, they call them runners because they run out of the plant and they are like growing long and long, so they call them runners.
produces tiny plantlets along its length, and these can be rooted and grown onto.
And these parts here, they have some small roots, okay? They have small roots on this part here and in this part here. So this is a tiny plant as we see in the first stage or the second stage after the seed is growing. So this one is not a seed, this is on the stem. On the stem we have a tiny plant, as you can see, a tiny plant. And this tiny plant has also some small tiny roots.
Produce new plants. Runners take a lot of the plant's energy to produce, so in the first 2 years of life they should be cut off from where they emerge to concentrate the plant's efforts on fruit production. From year 3, some of these runners can be used to propagate new plants. Only ever use healthy runners from vigorous, disease-free plants. Unless you plan to dispose of the parent plants, limit the number of runners to 5 per plant. Look closely at each plantlet, and you may be able to see tiny roots already beginning to form. To get these to root, simply peg down the plantlet into the ground or into pots of potting soil with a hairpin, U-shaped clip, or a length of thick wire bent into shape. Make sure the plantlet is in firm contact with the soil. After about a month to 6 weeks, the plantlets will have started to grow new leaves. At this point, cut it free from the parent plant. Grow the young plant on where it is, or dig it up and replant into fresh ground. New strawberries rooted into pots can be overwintered in a greenhouse or cold frame, then planted out in spring, which is useful if winters are harsh in your area. Strawberries become less productive over time, so you need to grow more plants and runners every 3 to 4 years to ensure continuing good harvests. For best results, and to avoid the build-up of disease, grow each new generation of strawberries in a completely fresh bed enriched with compost. You could also use your new plants to fill a special strawberry planter, troughs, or perhaps a handsome terracotta pot.
If, like me, you like getting something for free, then propagating strawberries from runners is well worthwhile.
Alright, so now we see how new strawberries can be planted not only from the seeds, but they can also reproduce through the stems. Really good. Now, dandelions. Okay, so dandelion plants can also reproduce through the roots. So dandelion plants use their roots to reproduce. Their roots send stems up out of the soil. The stems grow into new dandelion plants. So again, the dandelion plants, they can reproduce through seeds, but they can also reproduce through roots. And as we already have seen, dandelion seeds have parachutes and they can fly away and fall on the ground and reproduce through the seeds. But the dandelion plant can also reproduce and grow a new plant through the roots. Some plants use leaves to reproduce. So here we have another way. So this is not through the stems, not through the seeds, not through the roots, but through the leaves. The kalanchoe plant shown below reproduces this way. So the kalanchoe plant reproduces through the leaves, and this is the kalanchoe plant, and if you can see, this is the leaves. So new plants are grown from the leaves. So here we can read the caption. This kalanchoe plant is forming tiny new plants along its leaf edges. Alright, so let's continue reading. Kalanchoe plant shown below, this one, reproduces this way. Tiny new plants grow from the edges of the adult's leaves. So some tiny plants grow from the leaves, like the adult or the fully grown leaves. The tiny plants fall off and send roots into the soil, and this new tiny plants, they fall on the ground and they start growing on the soil. That's pretty interesting as well. I have another video of the kalanchoe plants, and this is a time lapse of the kalanchoe plant and its leaves. So you can see here that tiny plants are starting to grow on the adult leaves, as you can see here, and these will fall here and start growing again. Very well. Now let's talk about fern and mosses. Ferns and mosses make spores instead of seeds. So ferns and mosses, as we have already seen, they do not make seeds, but instead they make spores. So a spore can start to grow when it falls to the ground. This forms a new fern or moss plant. And again, the fern or a moss will not reproduce from the seed, but rather from the spore. And again, the spore will fall on the ground, on the soil, and if it has the perfect conditions like oxygen, water, and good temperature, they will start growing new fern or new moss. Very well. Let's go to number 4. Here they're asking us to draw. In the box, draw simple life cycle for a kalanchoe plant. So here I want you I want you at home to draw, because I cannot draw here, I can only write. I want you to draw the kalanchoe life cycle. You can draw it the same way as this one and as this one. Okay, just tell me what are the stages. Okay, what are the stages, like this, and then how each stage happened, and what happened in each stage, and what is the title of each stage. Alright, I will give you the correction for this life cycle. I'm just correcting this. Why isn't alright. So we will correct it, and I will see your drawing, and I will send you also the correct drawing of the life cycle of the kalanchoe plant. With this, we came to the end of this lesson. I hope you revise it again, and I see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.